NBC, CNN, Fox News, and Jazz Shaw and Michael Mataluni. Come aboard. Let's get weird right now on the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAPs and UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. I'm so happy you are here with me today. I want to say welcome to everyone in the chat so far, joining us for this awesome breaking news live stream. Here we are, where I'm trying new things. I'm asking friends to do last minute shows because news is breaking and there's things to talk about. So might as well talk to it with some friends. But before we do, of course, I want to remind everybody to please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And of course, ring that bell. That way you are notified anytime we do these live streams, which have no schedule. They're going to come at any time. So if you don't ring that bell, you're going to miss a lot of stuff. And you're also going to miss the big phone home. Well, you might miss the big phone home, but who knows? It's the word spreading. April 24th, 2021, 8-hour live stream with co-host Michael Mataluni and I. We're going to be talking about UAPs. We're going to be talking about transparency. We're going to be talking about activism. We're going to be calling. We're going to be motivating people to activate themselves with their local government all day for an 8-hour live stream. We're going to have friends come on, and both of these guys will be there on April 24th. Jazz Shaw has now done 14 radio appearances. I hope I got that number right, because I know if I didn't, he's going to kill me. So without further ado, let's bring on the two gentlemen that will be joining me today. The first is a co-host of At the Debrief. He hosts his own YouTube channel called Cocktails and Calamity over on YouTube. I've got both of these gentlemen's links in the description below. So if you want to find their stuff after listening to their fun conversation, because I know it will be fun, just click their links and it'll lead you all the stuff. So first up, we got Michael Mataluni. Hello, sir. How are you?
Luis Jimenez. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing very well. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you introduce our next guest because you know him better than I do. So I think it's only fair that, I think this will be fun. Every time I have friends on, I'll have the next guest introduce them. Yeah, let's do that. So you go for it.
Yeah, Jazz Shaw is the man, the myth, the legend. He is an extraordinary writer who contributes for The Debrief. If you follow him on Twitter, the dude is the man, always searching, always digging. He's an investigative journalist who just has a passion for this topic, and he's out there spreading the word, pushing for more transparency so folks like you and I can do the easy work, sit back and have fun conversations around what they find.
All right, and that man's name is?
Jazz Shaw.
All right. The sultry tones of Mr. Jazz Shaw. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thank you, Michael, for the brilliant introduction. I do want to give you one minor correction as an expert in language. I believe you pronounced it wrong. It's Luis Jimenez because it's a J.
Ooh.
And I was an English major, so trust me on this.
Luis, what's the can you break down it?
That was a joke.
I mean, I was say, look, if you want, we could get my mom in on this live stream, and then you can explain that position to her. We'll see what she has to say.
Luis was about to literally
for that too. Okay.
Luis was about to change the way he pronounces his name out of respect for Jazz Shaw.
I really was.
Or is it Yaz Shaw?
Yaz Shaw, obviously.
Yes.
Can you lose him?
Oh, no, wait. I don't know what happened. I accidentally clicked him off. Okay, there he is.
Oh, I would have cut me off then too, sure.
Yeah. All right, so we got some folks in the chat, which is really fun. So Thomas Fessler, that's the first time I've seen him. I saw one of these clips, and the audio from the interview was distorted and garbled. Not much more info, just that they expected to be late. Okay. We're going to talk about that because we also noticed the exact same things you noticed there, Thomas. Explorer Lab, oi, right back at you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Look who's here. Christina Gomez, Paradigm Shifts UFO channel. right?
Also, another friend from the
Wait,
debrief.
Mike, I can't hear you. Your audio's off. What happened?
Oh, sorry about that. The dog was barking in the background. I was just excited because Christina was here, and I got all excited. And
yeah, naturally, right?
Yeah.
She's good people.
She's the beast.
Okay, so Andy Oates, welcome, hello, and we've got this is one of my favorite people, Dan Zetterstrom. He's and you know, here's what's great about this right now is I've got these really handy. Dan Zetterstrom makes these stickers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he makes the signal. He makes these patches as well.
Yeah.
So check
and if
out
y'all
his
have
stuff.
it, if you can see him here in the chat, make sure you follow him on Twitter because he's got some incredible NFTs out now, and totally worth checking out. I know you did a breakdown, an unboxing of his stuff. It was pretty stellar.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, no, he's a really great artist, and he's doing some really cool stuff that people are digging. So that's always fun. Let's see here.
I will try to get a link. By the way, you already mentioned Christine. She has a YouTube channel going that's getting really exciting, and I've been trying to promote it. And I'll try to get a link up and put it in the chat. But she's doing a lot of great stuff.
Well, Christina, she's here. So do us a favor, put your link in the chat for us. You know, do a little bit of producing. If you're going to be here, you might as well help us a little bit, Miss Gomez. Jeez.
And help yourself. Help
us help you. And if you're here, come stop by. You got the link to come hang out if you want. I know you're a busy lady. You're editing all the time, but the invitation is always open. Okay. So gentlemen, let's discuss the first thing that was mentioned here in the chat by Thomas, and that was this new video that Mystery Wire dropped. The thing with this video, and you know, I gotta let everybody know here that the audio on this is not the best. So you know, it's not my fault. Please bear with me. I'm looking for the clip right now. Here we go. I got it. So this was dropped by Mystery Wire, obviously the guys at George Knapp. And before we rip too much for the audio on this, I got to say, we were talking about this in the pre-show, that from a production standpoint, I have had this happen to me, where you go to something that you're supposed to record and the audio doesn't work or the connections were bad, but it sounds great through the headphones. And when you get back to the editing machine or wherever you got to do to put this into a file to share with people, you find out, oh my God, the audio is complete crap and you've got zero choices. So from that aspect, I can sympathize, but let's be honest, this is freaking hilarious and we'll see what. All right, here we go. Can you guys hear this?
Yeah.
Classified photos of unidentified objects unveiled last week. A flying triangle above a Navy base. Are you familiar with the images from previous briefings, and what do you make of it?
Well, I'll comment on what's been in the public domain and what's been discussed publicly in a number of places. The bottom line is that we have had now consistent reports of objects flying over military installations and military training areas, and it's not the U.S. government. And so anytime I see things flying over a military installation that are not ours, we need to know who they are. We need to know why they're there. And that's the way I focus on it. Other people want to speculate about other things that are more exciting, UFOs, aliens, and all this sort of thing. And, you know, we just don't know what it is. And I think at a very basic level, if there are things flying over our military installations, if there are things flying over the skies of the United States and we don't know what they are and where they came from, we need to have answers to it, and we need to be working on getting an answer to it.
So what do you guys think about that first? I know that was hard to hear. Did everybody understand what was happening there? Oh, did we lose Jazz again?
We just lost him. I'm sure he'll pop back in.
Yeah.
You started with just the audio, and then we got the video there at the tail end.
Yeah.
But for those of you who don't know what exactly what this was, this is a couple questions that were asked to Senator Marco Rubio about the most recent Navy footage that came across. And he pretty much gave his normal answer. Anytime. Yeah, go ahead.
He did add one little new nugget, and that was that these aircraft are flying all over the United States. That's something I'd never heard him say before. So I thought that was an interesting new little detail that he threw in there. What do you guys think?
Okay. As far as the audio goes, I will just say, I don't know if you're you're probably familiar with another channel called Engaging the Phenomena.
Yes.
That, yeah, and the host does a series of like Ask UFO Twitter things. I have done a few of those, and I was invited to do one once, and I was given the topic. I sat down. I was in my office. I had a really nice backdrop, and I recorded a 15-minute video that I had worked on and had a whole bunch of notes and got that all done. And I was just getting ready to hit send after I saved the file. And I thought, I should go look and make sure everything was centered. And I clicked it on. And I had my microphone muted, and I had sat there for 15 minutes, and I was just chatting away, and there was absolutely no audio, and I had to go back and do it again. So, to keep this PG-13, crap happens.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about in the pre-show, I'm not going to knock Mystery Wire for that. And I think they're going to try to clean that up, and they're going to put a better version of it out in part of a larger package. So it was kind of funny, but I think we've all been there.
Yeah. No, and I think also what'll probably end up happening is they'll end up hooking up with one of the other reporters that was there that might have a better audio version from whatever device they're recording from, and just say, hey, can you do me a favor? Audio is crap. Can you guys send me over, and yeah, that's what I think colleagues would do. I hope anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line, when it comes to what he actually said is what he continues to say. And I think it's important. The fact that he continues to bring this up and talks about it again and again and again is incredibly important. I think one of the things people don't realize is the piece of legislation that was kind of snuck into to Trump's COVID bill that was pushing for this 180-day report. It's not something that's going to be released to the public. It never was intended to. It's supposed to be released to Congress.
Right.
Now, to what level will Congress then speak honestly and openly to the American public? That's a whole nother story. And I think that's part of what the Big Phone Home is about, is not only requesting that this report gets pushed through as quickly as possible, but then at a certain point, we need disclosure of what they know in the science communities and in the investigative journalism communities, so we can ultimately get the information to the public. I try to be as open-minded as I can. I try not to jump to any conclusions, and at the end of the day, I'm just looking for more data so we can make better decisions and understand what we're dealing with here.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. Jazz, you were going to say?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I will say that I think there wouldn't be a report coming if it weren't for Rubio. It was not single-handedly on his part. It was a bipartisan thing. But he did, as the chairman at that time of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, he was kind of the driving force and the guy having to make the final calls about not only whether it was going to be approached, but how it was going to be approached. And even though he's no longer the chairman of that committee, he continues to be a vocal advocate. I've written quite a few pieces on this, and if you read specifics of what was in the bill, he did call for there to be a non-classified, although report, which could be requested, but wasn't immediately available. It could be labeled official use only, which requires a few steps to go through to get it out. But then there could be a totally classified annex to the report. So, I'm hoping for a lot, but I'm one of the ones in the same camp as you, Luis, that I think if they feel like they can get away with it, they're going to put as little as possible in the unclassified version.
Right.
And I'm assuming they manage to get anything. We've already seen reports repeatedly that the task force has been getting stonewalled, which is why we need the Big Phone Home.
Right.
They've been getting stonewalled, and it could just turn out that the unclassified version just says, we've heard your concerns about a failure to consolidate information, and we've appointed somebody to be in charge and consolidate it, so we're going to do a better job of compiling. Thanks for your time. And then anything that might be interesting, if there is anything, would be in the classified annex. And I hope that's not what happens. And if it is, I hope we can get more members of Congress, people at every level, state, local, federal, to apply pressure to say, no, that's not good enough. If it's not about the Russians, if it is about the Russians, if it's about the Chinese and technology that we have or they have, sure, that's classified, that's sensitive. We don't necessarily have the right to hear all that. But if they have no idea and they're like, no, it's not us, not the Russians, not the Chinese, well, then what's your basis for saying this is a national security issue?
Right.
Aside from revealing sources and methods of how they collected the data, that should be classified too, I agree. But as far as your best current assessment, make that public. What is the justification for that to be classified? I don't get that.
Interstellar
it
warfare.
It should be in the public domain.
Right. No,
That's
I
my
agree.
take.
I agree, especially since I would, you know what I would love to find, and just to double down on what you said, and the reason why I think I know you're right is because anytime this question comes up, the first politician the media goes to is Marco Rubio, because he is championing this, and they know that. So that's why they keep asking him these questions. The other thing that I would say is that the way that he's laying out the playbook for all of these other politicians is so important, because now no matter how woo-woo the question gets, he's laid out a way for you to answer the woo-woo part of it, address the woo-woo part of it, but also come right back to the stone cold hard facts of what we're dealing with. And what I would love to see, just to touch on the national security part of this, the public videos that we have of the Nimitz, the Go Fast, and the Tic Tac, all of those videos are over 15 years old. Like, these are old technologies. These are old systems. These are things that are maybe just coming out of the military's inventory. That stuff should be available for anyone to look at, because especially if it happened on US soil. Like, what's the secret? What are you protecting there? Am I off on that, you guys think?
That's a good question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I wanted to bring up the Debrief released an article the other day about Chinese global supremacy when it comes to drone, both commercial and business, technology. And I think that they are, exploding with new technologies. And I think it's important when it comes to looking at this from a national security and defense perspective, that it's so important to normalize these things, both in a media perspective, a public perspective, as well as in a military capacity, because we do need to make sure this thing is destigmatized if it is in fact drone technology. Now, when you're looking at some of this stuff and you look at the triangle, the Navy triangle that Mystery Wire broke, that shit, like I'm hard pressed to call that any sort of drone that we know of. And I'm very curious to understand what other sensors and what other technologies this was picked up on beyond just the video. Obviously, there's a lot more to this story. It's going to be a much deeper story, but I think at the end of the day, if this does anything, if Rubio is setting a playbook to do anything, it's to destigmatize this topic so that we can, both from a military and a public perspective, come out and talk about these subjects, whether, without the stigma. And that is important for national defense, but it also breaks the door open for us to talk about other aspects of this phenomena.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I would point out that the Nimitz stuff was from 2004. That's pretty old. The Roosevelt stuff was considerably newer.
Right.
Okay. And I've had to deal in non-UFO stories where there is information that gets released that involves things like this. And in addition to having been in the Navy myself and being a radar technician and dealing with some of this stuff, the newer it gets, there is information that's contained when you have, I'm not talking about cell phone pictures like the pictures of the metallic blimp or the sphere or anything, but anytime you have videos like the ones that we had in those first three, there's what's called HUD, heads up data, that a pilot will be seeing. In addition to his bare eyes vision, he's seeing a panel at the same time that has data across the top, down the sides, across the bottom, and some of that can be revelatory as far as what the instruments they're using are tracking. And the stuff we got from the Roosevelt was obviously clipped, and a lot of that was cut out. So they're cautious about releasing that because adversaries could look at that and go, wait a minute, they can track that. So I'm not going to just wave a magic wand and say, oh, we should just release everything. There is information there that could be captured, is all I'm saying. And they deserve to be cautious about that.
Let me ask you guys this about the photos and the videos that came out, because the thing that I found out about it is they are new. They're within 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
2019.
Yeah. So do you guys know whether or not that video of the triangle craft moving through the frame, is that an infra, like I can't remember if it was infrared or what do they call it? The
Night
scope?
vision.
Night vision. Okay.
Night vision.
When they're looking through night vision, is that being recorded through the night vision device itself, or is somebody holding a phone to the eyepiece and recording that image? Because
if I can jump in,
yeah,
that was not, and I've used some night vision scopes actually. It would be really tough to stick a phone on there,
yeah,
you know, or some sort of remote camera. Those are recording devices. You have recording devices that have night vision, that have ultraviolet, that have infrared, that have standard video. You know, excuse me, it's a long day. So yeah, I think that was recorded video on a device that probably originally contained more data than that. But also the night vision is, among all the ones I just listed, it's about the worst for any clarity. We have some really good UFO videos from Afghanistan that were taken out in the field by guys that were using recording night vision scopes, watching for air traffic, and they picked up weird stuff. But it's probably the worst quality of video you could ask of any of those categories. Those, it's like that. Well, these are pyramids. When you look in night vision, it's pretty much flat 2D. They could be triangles, they could be pyramids. I believe they were pyramids from the testimony, you know. But yeah, that's it's dodgy. And how much of that are you going to release? Night vision isn't new. It's no secret to the Russians that we have night vision. Everybody has it now. You can probably go down to Walmart and get a night vision camera, you know. So, but to answer your question, that's pretty much what it was. You know,
when you look at, because I looked at the video too, and to me it did look like there was a separate it looked like the recording device was moving, and then it was moving up to the eyepiece, which was
well, maybe that's possible.
I mean, for something that is that fresh, I would just expect the quality of it to be way higher. And also with the photos, like the photos of the supposed transmedium craft, like they're really like they look like photos from the 50s. I mean, and that's no offense to Knapp and Corbell. Like those are the photos they got. That's what they got to go with. But what the fuck are those things? Like, why are we getting photos that look that like? I mean, this is 2019, dude.
Yeah, and I think to Jazz's point, I'm sure that, I mean, it's very possible that the night vision equipment they were using was a recording device, but that was not leaked, right? But the image that was put through it was what was leaked, because it's possible that maybe the person wanted to get it and then leak that, whereas they couldn't leak the official video because of national defense and things like that. So it's interesting.
Because
I want to just interject and just say, why are these videos so fuzzy and crappy and terrible? Everybody out there in the Bigfoot community right now is laughing their ass off and going, "Told you."
That's a good point. It's true. It's true. I mean, dude, it's a catch-22 or a double-edged sword, however you want to look at it. If it's too grainy, it's shit. If it's too good, it's CGI. Like, it's just, there's no winning here. And that's why I hate photos and video. Like, that's why I'm trying, at least nowadays, I'm trying. And sometimes it's tough. I'm trying to not get very excited about photos and video unless they have eyewitness testimony directly coupled with it, or radar, or some sort of other device that caught it from another angle. Like, that's the kind of information that all of us should be just screaming for, especially if the video of it is 15 years old. But okay, so let's continue with Marco Rubio, shall we, boys? Because we got through half of this, and sorry I didn't play the video on the first half. I'm producing this thing, so I'm not a great producer, you know.
That's not true.
I'm all but actually before we do that, I'm sorry, we have a question here from Explorer Lab. I started following that topic with the New York Times 2017 articles. Was there a time in history where the same kind of road to disclosure seemed to happen so we can compare and extrapolate? It's a great question. Jazz, I'm gonna go to you, but just because
because I'm old.
You're older.
I love it.
mean,
He was
you're
trying
older.
to qualify
But-
that statement, and then
Yeah.
Jazz just cut him brought him right to the point.
No, I love it. But it makes sense. I'm gonna respect your historical opinion on this more because let's face it, you might have been there. You might have been there. Hey, look, I have an historical opinion when compared to a 20-year-old. Like it's all relative, man. Time means nothing.
In the late 1970s, I grew up in upstate New York. For those who don't know, there was a period which is just generally known as the Hudson Valley 1970s flap, where there were not hundreds, but literally thousands of UFO sightings, all the way from New York City up to the Canadian border, up along the Hudson River in the Hudson River Valley in New York. It was massive. The media picked up on it, and it wasn't being treated as a joke. There was all sorts of stories, and people were banging on the government, going, "What do you know?" There were people doing, interviews, asking people from the 3 primary military bases up in that area, "What do you know? What's this? What's this? What was going on with this?" And it was actually taken seriously. And people in that period, I was just entering the military at that point, there were interviews with people in the government, the state government, the federal government, and like, wow, that's really interesting. And there was a big burgeoning sense of, wow, maybe this isn't just science fiction. Maybe this is real. Now we're talking about it. And then it died.
Mm-hmm.
And then the government buried all of it, and they discredited all the people who were talking about it. And it went away. And I'm not going to give you more examples because I would take up the whole show, and I've got a limited amount of time right here. But yes, it's happened before. Does it feel like we're closer than ever right now? To me, yes. But we've been down this road before. The government has a track record of, long before my birth, of 70 and more years of obfuscation, lies, and denial. And to think that you've got them pinned down right now, I'm hopeful, but I'm not counting on anything.
Right.
You don't count on a
Score
damn
'em
thing.
out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say also, just to double down on that, Jazz, is don't rest on your laurels. Just because we're getting data now, just because we're getting new videos and things are dropping, that doesn't mean we should just all be like, "Oh, it's happening," they're going to do it.
It's disclosure day. Get the champagne. Yeah.
No, we still have to ask. We still have to demand. I mean, politely, as kindly as we can, and as rational as we can. But that's what we're going to try and do.
Yeah. And you brought this point up a while back, Luis, about how, there are a lot of real political problems right here on the ground that the government has a lot of people talking to them about. And so it's so important for us to, you've got so many different huge political issues, and we need to be aware of those things. And so when we approach the government, I think it's valuable to make sure that they understand that we're coming from a, yes, we want answers. We need data. We need information to be released, but also, we're not trying to squelch other political movements that are incredibly important as well. So I think there's a balance to be had there. But I am curious. I want to point it back to Jazz because I'm really curious. You said you were you're a Navy vet, and so I'm very curious when your interest in UFOs and UAPs started. Did you see anything?
Not back then.
No.
I was always interested. And I'm not going to take up the whole show with a bio on me because we needed to get to the rest of that Marco Rubio clip. I was interested from a very young age in science fiction, always fascinating to me. But no, I never saw anything until last November was the first time that I actually saw something pretty concrete. And so did my wife, twice in 1 week in November of last year. But prior to that, I'd seen weird lights occasionally and stuff like that. Could be something, but it also could have been something else, So no, I was just going mostly on faith for most of that until just last year. But when the 2017 revelations came out, that's when I really shifted gears and actually started doing coverage of it and started doing even more digging, comparing the historical stuff to what was coming out then. And at that point I was like, this isn't just for TV. There's something real going on. Up until then, until 2017, if you'd asked me, are aliens visiting the Earth? I would have said, I wouldn't rule anything out entirely, but that's a big leap. But my view has changed. So,
well, I have to ask, Jaws. Jazz, have you told this story about your wife and yourself?
I put videos up on my YouTube channel. Yeah, they're not good. I mean, it's cell phone stuff at night. It's lights blinking and jumping from back and forth, and just sort of cruising along the horizon. In one case, back and forth.
Yeah, but
nothing
in real time. Let's take the camera, the crappy cell phone footage out of it, because we all know filming things at night, especially when they're far away, is just useless with a cell phone camera, no matter how good it is. But as just a firsthand witness, can you describe in some detail what you guys saw?
The first one was on the other side of the valley from where we live, and it was a bizarre shifting in shape and color object that was giving off light that was well above the horizon, but it was not a star or satellite or anything. And it was just going late at night back and forth at different speeds, or up and down. And it was covering a large amount of area in a relatively small amount of time. It was not a helicopter.
Man.
You know, we see these around here all the time. The second one, my wife was the one who filmed it, and it was directly overhead, right over our house, and going back and forth. And it just had this series of lights that were changing color, blinking on and off, disappearing entirely, then coming back like 15 degrees over, and just bouncing back and forth, way too fast for anything.
Yeah.
And she was the one who filmed it, and I sat there and watched it, and I put it up, like I said, on my YouTube channel. I tried to clean it up as much as I could, but all you can really just see is the individual jumps. It wasn't one thing just moving like a satellite. It was just different colored lights that were like boom, 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 you know, and then it just moved off and away.
Wow. You know, the first story you told me, I don't know about you, Michael, what that maybe sounded familiar to, but I immediately thought of season 2 of Unidentified when they talked about the triangles that were scanning, you know, or what looked like they were mapping out a section of this,
Exactly.
you know, this desert.
That too.
Wow. Pretty wild, man. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jazz. I had no idea. Okay. Well, that's cool, man. See, this is why I love these chats, dude. Like, we get these little nuggets. And Jazz, by the way, whenever you want to go, sir, you're more than welcome to jet out of here. Like I said,
let me get through the last part of the Rubio thing, but I will just say the reason I don't talk about it is because there's a million stories like mine. There's a billion stories like mine. I did not collect good enough evidence to come out and go, look at what I've got. I've got a crappy cell phone video, which does not reflect what we saw with our eyes. You know, and it's like, I can put that up there and Mick West will come up immediately and go, that was a luminescent neon seagull.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a few miles away, but it was a giant cold luminescent seagull. You know, and I don't have a way to come back and go, no, I have proof it's not a seagull. I just have this crappy video. So, you know, I don't.
No, I can relate to that 100%. The Undead Gaucho and I had a conversation about this last night because I've had a close encounter. I was 13 years old. I don't have pictures. I don't have video. It was a long time ago. You know, I'm okay with the idea that maybe my mind has changed the details of it. But like you said, people have stories. Everybody's got stories, but I can't put that on the table as proof.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, I also agree. Like, I have a hard time bringing it up because I don't want people to judge me based off of my experience, because the experience is a hard experience for anyone to grasp, let alone me. And I was there, you know, so it's just tough. And, but
what's
you know,
the most common 5-word sentence that people say when they're asked about these things? I know what evidence. I saw.
Oh,
that's what everybody knows, but that doesn't mean it makes it real for anybody else. And I have no expectation that my experience is going to make anything real for anybody else, unless something happens where I can get some really rock hard data.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, that's why we need great investigative journalism. That's why we need, and ultimately there needs to be expenditures. There needs to be budgets for this sort of thing, because if we're not really looking for these things, then we're not going to find them, or we're not going to have cold hard evidence to back it up. And that's the biggest challenge. The human brain is the easiest thing to trick on the planet. It's so simple. You look at all of these incredible illusionists who spend their entire lives deceiving people. It's pretty easy to do. Human beings, our memories are fallible. Our senses are fallible, so it's very difficult. But at the same time, when you have all of these people reporting all of these stories, it's we're not going to find any hard evidence until we actually invest the money to investigate it properly.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. And I would argue that now in 2021, and even going back to 2004, 2006 range, we're in a worse time for trying to present evidence, because back in the days, like if you're into the whole Bigfoot thing, when the Patterson-Gimlin film was taken, for those of you who are into more paranormal areas, all there was film, and you'd really have to work hard to fake that. Today, I know we have the signal is in the chat right now, has collected a selection of images. There's a free app you can download for Android or iPhone, and it will insert UFOs into any video that you take. And so there are going to be and I got to confess, if you don't go check, some of them are pretty damn convincing, but they're totally fake. We live in an era where it's so easy to fake stuff. So free and easy. You don't have to go to film school. You can just be some kid to download an app and go put it on the web and look at something that, if you had seen that taken on film in the 1960s or 70s, you'd be like, okay, UFOs are real. And now it's like, oh, kid with an app. So it becomes more and more challenging exponentially.
Well, real quick things. The first, our sponsor, BMC, my dad, Tackle, is saying, dead on, Jazz. I know what I saw. No apologies. So he agrees with you 100%. And also, I wanted to ask real quick before we get to the second half of this video, what do you guys think of having a UAP representative or expert or journalist inside the press briefing room that asks, because I would have loved for someone to ask Marco Rubio, the objects that were seen above the Roosevelt and the USS Kidd in this 2019 footage. In the report, it says that they're drones. Can you confirm for us that they were actual drones, or were they in fact UAPs? So that way there's an answer on what it is, because I think a lot of people are getting hung up on they're using the term drones. You said, Jazz, in pre-show that it was a UAV that, I believe in the report, on the deck logs report, is what they were using.
UAV, yes.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? Should we have a reporter that asks more pointed questions, that maybe we get a little more clarification, and maybe hopefully with a question like that paint somebody into a corner and maybe giving us an answer with some substance to it?
Go ahead, Michael, because I'm pretty biased about the White House press corps.
I mean, I would just say, yeah. I mean, you want somebody. I think the most important thing is, and I think this is what they're trying to do at the debrief as well, is to try to speak to these things from very scientific terms. I mean, you look at the different articles that they produce. We're talking about drones. We're talking about human psychology. We're talking about things that should be very mainstream and that are very mainstream. And then we're trying to bring in this conversation into the science and tech mainstream. And I think if we can do that, then we can leverage more journalists into those positions. So the short answer to your question is yes. The long answer is we need better journals that are more reputable to, get access to those press corps.
I once again agree with pretty much all of that. I will say that despite all the progress that has been made, despite all of the outlets that we see, including places like Washington Post, New York Times, Fox News very early, but now CNN even doing segments, the subject being taken more seriously. When you get down to the level of the people that are allowed to go into the briefing rooms, particularly at the White House, but even with senators, with higher ranking congressmen who get into that gaggle, and that's the word that they use in the industry. Yeah. The people that get in there, those seats are so highly prized.
Yeah.
They are so fought over. And we're not so far past the giggle factor, past playing the X-Files music. We're not so far past that you can ask that question and not risk losing your seat. And they expect you to be focusing on what's going on the southern border, what's going on with the pandemic, what is your new policy about this? And the person, the man or woman who stands up and goes, by the way, I have a question about UFOs. She's probably gone next week.
Well, then let me ask you this. Is that something maybe we should ask for when we call Congress? A press representative in that room that has a permanent seat. So that way there is no, there is no fear of getting fired or fear of asking the question. Is it even a legitimate request? Can we request something like that?
Oh, you can ask all you want, but I would remind everybody that those seats are not elected positions.
Right.
The public has no input on who gets in those chairs. That is a joint decision between, on one side, the White House, other side, the Congress, the press selection areas there, and the organizations that send journalists. There is a huge amount of competition. Like, I want to be the one who gets the next open seat, and that's a very private process between the public sector and the private sector, and nobody has any say over that. Unless, if you want to get that, you get somebody like that and you make them the editor-in-chief at one of the major newspapers. You make one of them the owner of one of the cable networks. That's your only route in, because we don't have a public voice to go, oh, I don't like this reporter. I don't want that reporter. I want this reporter because he or she asked about UFOs. Well, good. That's your opinion. Now piss off, kid.
Yeah.
We don't have a seat at the table.
So then it would probably be more of that would probably, I mean, yeah, it sounds almost impossible, but I mean, like even just I guess every 4 years you would have to petition whoever's in the White House to be like, hey, is it, could we request an extra seat for this topic within that room?
Sure.
Because within that room there are, you got the foreign policy covered, you got domestic policy covered, you got all of the things that we talk about on a daily political basis, but there's no UAP task force seat. There's no UAP reporter. So I'm just spitballing, figured,
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there are so many other things as well, right? Like we're in the middle of a robotic revolution. We're in the middle of an AI revolution. We're in the middle of a technological, exponential growth pace. And it's like there are so many important things that the government needs to be focused on beyond the phenomenon. And I think it's incredibly important. But they don't even, the only person who was talking about automation was Andrew Yang in the 2020 election cycle. Nobody else is talking about automation. Nobody's talking about how many jobs we're going to be losing and all of these things that are going on. So it's like, why are they going to let anybody in just to talk about UAPs? It's not going to happen. That's why I think that it's so important for reputable news journals to report on these things so that in those reputable journals, they can have people in the gaggle that can then ask those questions. I don't think you're ever going to have somebody who just talks about UAPs. I think that's a beautiful dream, but it's
no, of course I'm an idiot. That's why I say things like that.
No. Luis wasn't saying just, but if you want to get those seats selected to people who do ask those questions, then, well, sorry guys, you should have elected Andrew Yang. He probably, probably would have done it, and because he was open to a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah,
but allegedly Donald Trump was too. He was giving interviews to his son, talking about it in ways that I thought were particularly disingenuous, and he was just trying to sound more sly than he actually was. I don't know if anybody ever actually briefed him on anything, but we're getting off in way far afield. But no, it's going to take public demand. But again, we don't have a seat at the table. It's not an elected position to get a reporter in there. It's a very private clique. I think the way that gets approached is by increasing the public appetite, because if enough of the press outlets realize, oh, this is something that draws clicks, this is something that gets eyeballs, this is something that gets asses in seats, then they're going to pick a reporter next time there's an opening to go, we can really get a lot of hits if you ask this question. I think that's how somebody gets in. There is no public pressure or voting that's going to get your desire to
Right.
happen. I think
Right.
there has to be enough of an appetite as consumers of media that the providers of media will go, oh, it'd be a good move to, for Fox News to send this guy that always talks about this. Let's get him in there and ask a question. And they can't stop you from asking questions once you're in the seat.
Right.
That's the way you do it. You apply pressure to the media to say this is a demand that exists for this type of content, and that could happen.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's tough. I mean, Thomas brought up in the comments how difficult it is because, all of these questions are pre-prepped now. They don't even take your question unless they know what it is. So it's very difficult to do any sort of gonzo journalism and get an I gotcha from Jen Psaki.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny that's even considered I gotcha journalism. Oh, what, we can't ask you a question that you can't prepare for? Like, what kind of
you can't.
Is that even journalism technically? Like if you get down to the core of it, what do you think?
I have a lot of thoughts on that, but
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I was just thinking it's one thing when you're asking questions to a Marco Rubio or a congressperson. It's another thing when you're in a daily White House press briefing, right? So they're not going to talk about things they don't want to talk about. That's just and if they are going to talk about something, they're going to carefully curate that question to your. Now the ethical perspective of journalism and whether or not you should be able to ask questions that the White House press secretary is or is not prepared for. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think ethically you should be able to ask the questions you want to ask, but they have a right to answer in the way that they want to answer, regardless of your politics or which side of the aisle you lean on.
Well, I'll say this just so we can move on because I know Jazz has got to go. I think we're getting there. I think the traction of these stories is starting to pick up steam in mainstream news. I mean, this was on Good Morning America this morning. They were talking about this, they're talking about it in Australia, in China. Like this is being picked up by the main media and it's getting eyeballs.
And that's exactly what Jazz is saying. There has to be financial incentive. There has to be journalistic financial incentive for the big news conglomerates to make money off this. And I guarantee you, CNN's watching Fox News and going, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And as these things start to blow up, then they'll pick it up. And it's a shame. I mean, it really is a shame, but it is the world we live in. And as long as as long as people are clicking and are interested, but that's the thing, like, it seems like there's more interest now than there's ever been. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens, even if it has to be this financially motivated model.
Jake Tapper and Michael Smerconish have both done UAP task force segments on CNN. I have other contacts in the media that I speak with in the background. I have done my best without revealing anything to people that would betray confidences. I work with quite a few of these people on the various networks and speak to them in the background on a regular basis. And I have pushed and tried to get more coverage of the subject, and some of it is happening, but CNN is one of the most cautious ones. They really stick to the what story can we cover that has other people covering it, who, what, when, where. Fox is a lot more bold and ambitious, and they'll break things first. The traditional alphabet networks are the ones we've had the least success with: ABC, NBC, CBS. Not that there hasn't been any, but they'll wait until the other ones do it first.
Well, that's exactly
I
what
give
they did.
huge props to Washington Post and, well, particularly New York Times first, Washington Post second, and then the LA Times probably third, that they have started picking up on these things. And they realize that when they publish these stories, it's not risky anymore, because some of those stories for their online postings have been the most highly clicked, highly followed stories. The New York Times 2017 one, of course, is one of their highest traffic stories ever on their website, and I think it's happening, but it's not going to happen at the pace that a lot of people wish it would happen. It's an evolution, but it has to become even more acceptable than it is now before we see people showing up in the White House press corps gaggle, the ones who cover the Senate and the House. Before people that get those seats are people that are prone on a fairly regular basis to go, here's the latest UAP story. I think it may be coming. Maybe I'm foolishly hopeful, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. No, I agree. We're not there yet, but I could see the tide changing.
Sure.
Yeah,
Agreed.
which is very encouraging. All right, so let's get to the second half of what Rubio has to say here.
After Congress authorized the UAP task force to set a June deadline for a comprehensive report, has the Senate staff checked the status of that report and will the deadline be?
Okay, just so in case you're wondering, they're asking about the status of the UAP report. Again, the audio is really bad, but we've already talked about this, so you guys already know. So here's the answer.
Too soon. I suspect that it won't be back in time because the government consistently misses deadlines on reporting, and because frankly, I'm not sure a lot of work has been done previous to our mandate on the report. But I do think we're going to have answers. I do think there's going to be a report, and we'll make judgments based on what they report and what they show us. I know there are people looking at it, but our job is to stay on top of it. Look, it's one of those things that because of what it implies, the stigma associated with it, a lot of times we look the other way. People say, well, let's not talk about that because they're going to think we're weird. I'm not telling you I know what it is. That's the problem. We don't know what they are. We need to know what they are.
Am I the only one, but I hate to jump in, but listening to the audio of the question when it was asked, at some point that she was going to come out and just go, exterminate, because I was like, come on, that's a Dalek. All right, that's one of the Daleks. I understand the technical challenges, but come on, man. That was just funny.
It is funny. I mean, look, if you can't laugh at yourself when you make a mistake, you're going to have a rough life. But I'm sure whoever recorded this is feeling about this big because I've been there. But anyway, Michael, you were going to say.
I just love, this is off topic, but I just love the fact that like Rubio never misses an opportunity to bash government.
It's true, man. He really doesn't.
He and I are the same on that score. So.
Yeah.
But here's the things that I picked up on from what he said. And the first is that this report, nobody's working on it. Like nobody's really giving a shit. And it's not really until right about now that they're starting to really pay attention to it because they can see there's a demand for it.
Right.
And he says, we're going to get a report, but it's not going to be what people are hoping for, which is why I think it's important when we call that we ask for an extension, that you're asking for an extension with a preliminary report. So we want an additional 180 days so that this way the government doesn't have this excuse next time. Because like he said, it's not because they don't really give a shit. I don't know if they really give a shit. It's just slow. Government is slow and reports are late all the time. So this is just the expectation we have to set, but we might as well beat them to that expectation and ask for it. So that way it happens.
Right. I think it's interesting too, to like take a step back and really look at like, we're all here, we're all reporting on this, we're all commenting on this. And what is it that we really want to know? What is it that the public really wants to know? Because, I had a personal experience when I was 11 years old on vacation with my parents, and we saw some incredible shit that none of us could explain, and just truly extraordinary sighting. And I'm like you, Luis. I'm like, well, is mine a memory of a memory of a memory? Like, I don't know, like to what extent my psychological profile is manipulating my current memory. But I definitely, after talking to my dad a couple weeks ago, he's like, oh yeah, I remember. And he broke it down, and I was like, okay, that's pretty much what I remember too.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. For me, I have my, it's interesting because I'm of two minds about it. One mind is I want to be, I want to be very methodical and rational and skeptical, but not to a fault. But I also, there's another part of me that truly believes deep down there's something really big and universal happening here that we need to be questioning. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But what I do know is if we're not asking the questions, this could be the hugest story that was ever broken. It's incredible, the implications of this.
It could be the biggest story ever, and there's still that very large part of me that thinks. I hate to use the word, even though I have. If you go into my den where I normally record, I have a "I Want to Believe" poster framed and on the wall, but it really still is just a belief, and.
Right.
there's I am a firm believer that the universe is way weirder than our materialist view portrays it. I think we haven't figured out nearly as we're still not quite as smart of a bunch of monkeys as we think we are when it comes to figuring out the really big picture. I think maybe we're getting some hints and some glimpses into a bigger picture. I don't know if I'm going to live long enough to see that, but I do think we have to keep pushing. And I do appreciate what Marco Rubio is doing. And with that, I want to thank both of you gentlemen for having me on. But I have two separate emergencies going on right now. One of which is that my wife is getting dinner ready, and the second of which is I need a martini. So I'm going to bow out, and I thank you for having me on. And I was happy to spend the time. I thought it was a good topic, but waving goodbye to everybody out there, and I was glad to participate.
Thank you, Jazz Shaw. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for stopping by.
Anytime.
Yes, sir. I love Jazz
He's awesome.
Shaw. That's what I want to be when I grow up, Michael.
And you can be.
That's my goal right there. I mean, honestly, that dude oozes cool for me.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out some of his stuff over the debrief, I mean, the guy's a great writer.
Yeah, he's a sick writer. And just a wealth of knowledge. But I wanted to comment on something you said there, Michael, and that was your personal experience. I talked about this last night with Gaucho, and the thing that I compared it to, and sort of because we are, whether we realize it or not, as experiencers, we are constantly bombarded with, don't fucking talk about it, don't mention it, it doesn't count, it doesn't matter, right? Because if we do, we're labeled with the crazy, the stamp on the forehead, right? And it feels, this is what I would imagine what it feels like. Have you ever seen those interrogations where the police arrest somebody innocent, but they interrogate him for 15 or 20 straight hours, and by the end of it, they have a confession out of this person that did nothing? That's what I feel like with you know, when it comes to telling personal stories. It's like, wait a second, did that happen? Am I crazy? You know, and when you talk to somebody else who was there, and the good thing about my experience too, this was at a birthday party. There was like 30 people there, you know? So like, I'm still in touch with some of these folks. And the first thing we always discuss anytime we see each other is, hey man, you remember that thing we saw at that? Yep, I sure do. Okay. Just want to, you know, do the 15-year check that, yes. Okay. That memory is real. You know, so like, yeah, what do you think of that, dude? Like, do you feel the same way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, even just reporting on the phenomena, like I have my own personal beliefs, and then I have, you know, and then I come at it from a more journalistic perspective, and I have to find that balance. But like, you know, from just talking to Michael Mataluni, you know, there is a serious stigma here. And, you know, when you talk about this subject just around, you know, folks who don't believe or just could care less, you definitely want to avoid the topic, because there's shame associated with it. There's, you know, there's all of these human emotions, you know, that keep you from saying what you've seen. And so I don't judge anybody, you know, for sharing any of this information or what they've seen. You know, but I do try to remain skeptical, but open-minded. Yeah. You know,
well, just because I've had the experience doesn't mean what I saw was an alien craft or, you know, a trans-dimensional being, or whatever you want to label it. Okay. Because on this channel, we have no fucking clue. We don't know what it is.
But Jazz, I think what I loved about what Jazz brought up about how the universe is far weirder than we give it credit for, because, you know, we're coming out of I just picked up Michio Kaku's new book, The God Equation, and, you know, he really talks about, you know, what is this theory of everything, and it's trying to fill the gap between Newtonian physics and quantum mechanics. And so, you know, these two, you know, Newtonian physics is it's rock solid, right? I mean, it's just, you try to break these laws and it's very difficult to do. But then you have these, you know, atoms operating on spooky action. Even though Einstein predicted this is a possibility, he didn't believe it was true, and then now we've demonstrated. So the universe is incredibly weird, and you move down into the subatomic realm, and these particles are doing things that you can't possibly imagine or why. You think about your own body, right? Your own body is 99.9% empty space, and then you've got these little packets of energy floating around, and that constitutes the human form and everything else. So all of this bizarre shit is going on that we can't explain or fully process. So, when you bring up the idea of an interdimensional being or a UFO, it's like you immediately get laughed at, but then nobody can, you talk about spooky action, and then everyone's like, well, I guess, I don't know. Because you can't see it. It's not something that you can really see. So we're all locked into this kind of Newtonian worldview when the universe is operating on a completely different level at the subatomic realm. And it's fucking bizarre, man.
Yeah, no, it is very.
But I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great because it's I think that's something that this community can lean on, is that this is the bottom line. The smaller science seems to get, in other words, the tinier the things we can see, the stranger shit gets. It's just following the rules of the Newtonian physics that you're talking about, and scientists are looking at this going, blah, 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 what? And we're going, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense with what I saw, especially once they start diving into the mathematics of it and the theories of it, and it's just like this universe is a lot stranger, lot stranger than what we're perceiving. That is,
which is cool. And we've talked about this about psychedelics as well, because one of the things psychedelics do is they give you the ability to detach from the centralized mode of the brain. So every day you wake up and you go, I got this to do, that to do, this to do, that to do, this to do. And that's your brain function. And then when you do a psychedelic or something like that, it takes you out of that aspect of reality and allows you to dig much deeper into what's going on within your brain and within the universe. And it's absolutely fascinating because we cannot explain these things on a daily basis, and it's definitely an exploration, and I'm down for the ride.
Yeah, no, I'm speaking of rides. This comment we have here, Alan Forbes. This is a very old friend of mine from Miami. He actually lives in Orlando, Mr. Mataluni. Michael also lives in Orlando. Yeah, you guys are neighbors. This guy you probably have heard his voice if you've ever been to Epcot or Disney World. He does voices for like the Turtle Time or the Finding Nemo thing. I've never been because when he started working there, I was not living in the state, and I just haven't been to Disney World since I moved out of Florida.
Is that the live one? Does he do the live one?
He does the live one.
My kids love
he
that.
Does Crush. Where I've been meaning to get him on the show, but shit has just been blowing up, Alan. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of stuff has been going on with this channel, and all of my actor friends just stopped coming in because I just don't have the time. But Alan is definitely somebody I got to get in here because he's incredibly brilliant. He's a really smart dude. We've had some fierce political discussions, but it's always love at the end of it. And this dude's just hilarious. So you probably have heard him.
I'm sure I have. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So pretty cool. So welcome, Alan, dude. I'm glad you're here. Yes, this news being released is absolutely insane. It is, and we're trying to unpack it here. We're trying to talk about it. This is the muon magic. This is kind of what we're talking about, right?
What is muon magic?
Isn't this a particle that science? I don't know. I can't. I don't
is that
want
one of the newer particles?
Yeah, something happened here recently.
The muon is an elementary particle similar to the electron with an electric range of it is classified as a lepton.
Yeah, something happened with these muons that basically helped us possibly discover a new element or a new
force of nature, right?
There you go. Yeah,
right.
Because they're smashing these atoms inside this neuron collider, and this is one of the things they kind of just are working on or getting excited about. So, but they still need a ton more information before they confirm it, but it is cool and it's weird, right? It's one of those weird things. So Rusty Pack love reading all the comments, hate being late to the streams. Don't worry about it, dude. This is, you got a life, man. I'm sure you have things to do. If we do a live stream, the beautiful thing about it, you could just watch it at your own leisure. you know, and you could always join us for the next live stream. So don't sweat it, Rusty. We're going to be doing a lot of these, by the way. Signal. We've not only demonstrated it, we found it in photosynthesis, and our own brains utilize quantum effects, thus disproving the idea that a quantum effect needs to be super cooled.
I think it's amazing. The Signal and I, we have a private conversation going on Signal, and I shared with him several things that I experienced in a psychedelic state.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. It's truly fascinating what we're beginning to discover. And I think, you know, there's inner space and there's outer space, and I think we need to be investigating both.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. All right. Well, Michael, how much time do you have? We've been going for about an hour, so if you want to dip, that's cool. We can end it.
5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right, cool. So, what do you want to do? What should we do for the last 5 minutes? Should we take questions from the audience?
Yes. Let's take questions from the audience, and let's talk. Like, if anybody has any questions about the Big Phone Home, so we are the date of the Big Phone Home is
April 24th, 2021. So next Saturday. We're close. We're real close. Yeah, it's coming up, dude. So I hope you've made plans to be off that day.
Well, it's a Saturday, so it's not a big deal. It's gonna be fun, man. I really enjoy you know, the amount of guests that we have coming on and the folks who we're gonna talk to.
Have you had a chance to check out the email list that I've been adding connections to?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Yeah, I've been just filling it in as the week has been going on. So we still got a couple more that I got to get in there, and there might even be some last minute guests that pop on that I have no idea, you know, that I didn't personally talk to. So we'll see. It's all exciting. It's all fun.
It's going to be great. And I think, you know, going back to this topic of like, what do we want to know? I think that's a fun topic to you did Signal just mentioned that you did a tweet a while back about asking what people want to see or hear in the report. What were some of the things that stick out in your mind?
Well, I can tell you, man, it's ever developing, because based on all these new live streams that I've been doing, ideas have been popping in my head. One of which I don't think there's no way we're going to be able to ask for this year. It's just a silly request, but I think for next year, it's something that we should seriously draft up. And that is talking about the budget for the ATIP program, which was $22 million for 5 years. It's basically pork barrel spending. It's a drop in the bucket. I don't know if you know this. Yeah, how much pork barrel spending is there in the budget every year?
Well, pork belly is. I'm not sure exactly because pork belly can often mean just things that are packed into a bill that don't have to do with the initial bill. So you're talking about what exactly is your question?
I guess what I'm saying is a program like ATIP is a pork belly spending sort of program where it's just like, okay, this is the extra money we had, this is what you get, and don't ask us for any more, kind of thing.
Right.
So my question is, out of the entire budget, how much of that is taken up by that kind of spending, pork belly spending?
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to this.
I don't know the answer to this, but what I do know is the military defense spending is just so extraordinary. So if Rubio keeps pushing and Congress keeps pushing, this is a national defense issue, we might see a lot more money going in to this research. And I think that's the thing that we have to really be, and it's so hard, right? Because you have so many different, we talk about compartmentalization in the military, we talk about compartmentalization in the government, and, the CIA hates the FBI and the FBI hates the CIA. And then you've got the military and you've got the Navy and the Air Force, and they all hate each other. And it's like, nobody likes to work together, right? America's not a team sport. And so we need to figure out if this issue is as important as we say it is, as these Congress people say it is, then they need to be getting off their asses and investing more. And I think we're not going to see any real results until we see those investments in that. So I think you're right. I think, ATIP was a drop in the bucket. And I think a lot of that money was mismanaged, misspent. But at the end of the day, if you're in the military and you're about defense, you're not looking for things that are untested and unproven, right? So we talked about this, like going, look at the Roswell incident, during the World War, right? Because we had, supposedly we had found these crafts and we want to investigate these crafts to see how we can use them for our military might. But simultaneously, do I really want to invest the budget in something that I don't know whether or not we're actually going to be turned into something usable for military and defense? And so
the reason why I'm asking is because I agree with everything you just said. There's no way to keep track of those dollars. There's no way to know where they're going. So what I would suggest is, instead of giving $22 million to a program where we don't get any answers or access, and scientists can't access or share information, why don't we take that $22 million in pork belly spending and give it to people to buy sky hubs? Like scientific organizations like Harvard or the SCU or academic, institutions. If they want to apply for this grant to get sky hubs, and they can do whatever they want with them, improve them, hook them up on the Land Rover.
What is a sky hub?
So the sky hub is what Jeremy, why am I forgetting his name? Jeremy McGowan. Who was in our chat the other night.
Yes.
The Sky Hub is a unit that basically is a camera system, a sophisticated camera system that watches the sky and uses AI to pick up anomalous objects. And it uses software tracking, and then it compares those things that it finds to known objects, to satellites, to planes, and then it gives you a report at the end of the night, and it tells you, okay, this is interesting, this isn't. Most times you don't get anything, but what and this unit is supposed to just be put on the ground. Man, me and Jeremy got to talk, because he'll lay out the Sky Hub for you. But
I think that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant.
It's a scientific instrument that the SCU is promoting, and it's not expensive. We're talking about $4 or $5 grand per unit, and that's if you want to hook it up to a car like Jeremy did. Jeremy put it on his Land Rover, and he goes out to different. The beautiful thing about it is he could take his Land Rover and drive it to Skinwalker Ranch for a week and go watch the sky at Skinwalker Ranch. Because guess what? If there's a phenomenon going on at Skinwalker Ranch, like so many people claim, I can promise you, just like he said, that phenomena does not stick to property lines. So this information could be had by anyone that's got the time. And also, it's also a great family promoting sort of thing, because he does it with his daughter. So his daughter's getting a taste of science and learning how to do the scientific method, and also spending time with her dad. So this is something that you could pitch to the American government and say, hey, instead of spending all this money and doing this program that nobody can open source and share information, why not open this up to us? Give it to people that apply for it, and especially the people who want the tools and the data and the money, of course.
I think if there's anything we've learned in the past 20 years in technology, it's that crowdsourcing is the way to go, right? Because the more people who are interested in a subject, who are able to actually do the work on the ground to gather the data, to gather the information, so many people will be willing to do this for free. You just buy them, but buy them the Sky Hub, right?
Exactly.
I think that's brilliant, and I think that. I love that you grassrooted this, the big phone home. You created it out of nothing. And, now look at all the support. You got Jazz out there on these radio programs, pitching people involved. But, there's organizations out there who are already starting to do this, but the more we can get these organizations legitimately scanning for these objects, with good technology, good data, gathering good data, the better off we're going to be, and the more we're going to learn, as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And I think, man, I agree. I think that's the way to go, is give people the tools, because they'll go out there for free if you give them a $3,000 camera, because they want to know, they want to know just as badly as you do. And the beautiful thing is, all of that data is open source through one software, so it's like, you can't smudge the numbers. The numbers are going to be the numbers, and you can't change them. And that's the beauty about the technology. But real quick, I wanted to point this out. Where did that comment go? Here we go. Alan, for those reading the comments, I voiced Turtle Talk with Crush, Monsters Inc., LiveStream, and Muppet Mobile Labs, Dr. Bunson's Honeydew.
I missed the laugh floor, man.
Oh my God, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gone.
Is it gone?
Yeah.
Let us know. But yeah, so somebody, I think Zigno had said something that he might have even seen it. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing. I'm still thinking of it. Well, by the way, welcome, Rodrigo. Let's see here. Did we get any questions? Okay, here we go. Can you add your thoughts on Linda Moulton Howe's concept of resonating Planck's constant? I'll be 1,000,000% honest with you.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'll be honest. I'm going to be honest with my audience. I don't listen to a lot of Linda Moulton Howe. To be honest, I've done reviews of her films, and I have a lot of respect for her. I think at first I didn't, and then after watching that film, I gained a lot of respect for Linda Moulton Howe, especially the time frame of which she did it. She got her own film equipment. She was the director. She was the editor. She was the sound person. She did everything. And we're talking about 1977, 78, when women filmmakers were almost non-existent. She did it, and it's actually awesome. The music in that documentary is one of my favorite things. But past that, I don't think she's done a very good job at sort of looking at new ideas, new theories, new possibilities of what is being dealt with out there. But, to each their own. It doesn't matter here. I don't care what your belief systems are, or who you like or who you don't like. We're just trying to find common ground here. But I just wanted to be honest about that.
Yeah, I'm completely ignorant on the issue.
Yeah, I have no idea. Okay, so we'll move on. There it is. Alan Forbes, Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor was my favorite thing the last time I went a few years back. Thank you. Look at that. So Dan Zetterstrom was in the States. He actually heard you. I mean, dude, I think that's
small world, my man.
Stuff like that happens. I love it. Okay, so Any Money Defense will give classified information. Let's see here. Did you see any questions in here?
I thought the Explorer put up an interesting one. It's not a question, but it says, problem is that the phenomenon doesn't really like sensors. It has been quite destructive at SWR and then hit. It also tends to evade detection. That's an interesting point.
Oh, right here. Okay. Yeah, no, that's a theory, right? We don't know that for sure. Right? But it's a good theory. It's a damn good theory. And I think I bet you Lou Elizondo would probably agree with that theory if I had to take a guess. That's just me guessing. One really fun, my dad. Where did he write it? Where can I get one of those? I'm close to Skinwalker. I'll stick it on the roof of my house.
I love your dad.
He's in Utah, dude. He's like, I'll do it. I mean, he's in like, I think Heber, Utah. So it's like there's no light pollution out there. He would be the perfect person to run one of these because he's pretty scientifically inclined. He's probably one of the best mathematicians I know. He's a respiratory therapist. So I think he would be able to do the Sky Hub. You're a perfect candidate for it, Dad. Just Google it and you'll find it. It's the easiest thing to find there. And before you buy one, because by the way, he's going to be stopping by the Big Phone Home, my pops. Yeah. So we're going to be meeting my dad where he's going to be talking about UAPs and UFOs and the stuff he's up to and Blue Marlin Chronicles. So I want to give him a shout out on the at the Big Phone Home because, without his help, I wouldn't have this microphone. We wouldn't be, I'm sure eventually I would have gotten here, but we wouldn't be here. And so thanks for that.
Absolutely. If you are if you're interested in deep sea fishing, make sure you check out Blue Marlin Chronicles.
Yeah. If you're on any coast, the man sells the best fishing equipment possibly on the planet. Okay, so I think let's end it here. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good. This is fun. I'm up for doing this a lot more.
Dude, I love this. And Michael, I can't emphasize enough. I've started the chat now. So if you want to do one of these, I'll come to your channel. Let's share the love. You know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm actually in the process of rebranding Cocktails and Calamity, so I'll keep you updated on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And before we go, and by the way, that also means like if I'm like, hey, does anybody want to talk about this? You could be like, yeah, let's do it on my channel. So I don't want anybody to be like, oh, am I stepping on toes, dude? This is a I only invite you here. I only invite you here because you're fucking cool.
This is the cool shit about what you're doing, and I think this is why people respect the fact that the way you approach this concept is that far too many people in the UFO community and on UFO Twitter and all that sort of thing are, you know, aggressive towards one another. And I think that there's so much more room for collaboration. And, you know, when you only have, you know, a few hundred characters, it's very easy to misrepresent your point or to misrepresent somebody else's. So doing long form conversations like this and creating a community around mutual support and collaboration, I think is critical for the success and growth. So
critical.
Thank you for what you're doing, brother.
Dude, no, thank you, man. Thank you for entertaining me. I'm so happy we've become friends, dude.
Dude.
And here we are. We did one show, and I was like, the first person I thought of to co-host this fucking maniac idea was you. I'm like, I don't know why, but I'm like, I feel like Mataluni is the perfect guy to ask for this, to do an 8-hour live stream where I'm not gonna pay him, and I've never met him in my life. But the dude is cool.
Right back at you, brother.
Dude, before you go, and just to also double down on what you said, why did I say that? Just to double down on what you say. Like, what is this, fucking Vegas? So, to double down on what you said, I think you're right. I think a lot of people on Twitter talk past each other. It's a very, very easy platform for you to lose, to lose translation. To you know, it's the perfect platform for that. So as this channel grows, and I talked to you about this privately, I want to see on this channel when, you know, a Zach Sitchy is in an argument with a Mick West, and I'm big enough to call them or hit them up and be like, you boys want to settle this on a live stream?
Get in the room.
About it. Let's talk about it. Let's stop sending memes. Let's stop chatting. Let's stop having these tweet feeds that nobody can fucking follow. Let's have a conversation face to face. And if it ends with you guys hanging up on each other and hating each other, then okay, fine. You know, but if it ends up where you guys were like, oh, that's what you meant, then you know, that's what we need. Is we need to find more common ground, and Twitter is the worst place for that. And it's not that I don't like Clubhouse. I love Clubhouse, but this is better. Because I see you. Yeah. And I can see if you're being facetious or you're being, you know what I'm saying? Like, if what you're saying is not really what you're vibing. Right. You could bullshit like that on Clubhouse, and I think you're a little more bold because you're not in front of that person. Yes. So you're a little more bold to write people off and be snippy and snarky. Here, this is as close to face as you can get. And if you're rude here, I'm going to call you out, like I did with Mick West. You know, when he starts laughing in my face, I'd be like, "Whoa, what the hell are you doing? You know, why are you laughing at me? Like this is a serious discussion." You know, so. Dude, thank you. And before you go, please, I've got your link tree in the description below, but tell people where they can.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on. Yeah, no worries. You can follow me on Twitter at Calamity Mike. You can also click the link tree below. I currently run a podcast called Cocktails and Calamity, though I am in the process of rebranding, and I'll talk to you about this offline, Luis. I've got some fun ideas. Yeah, man. You also make sure you check out The Debrief, the YouTube channel, The Debrief. We've got a ton of content over there, ton of interviews on this subject, as well as science, technology, and futurism. Make sure you check out The Debrief, but you can follow me on Twitter, and you'll see all that stuff.
Yeah, and just to share with everybody real quick, this will be the last thing I share, but I have to, you know, always remind people of where this is on my favorites here. But if you look at the top here, the very first thing that I have on this screen is the Debrief. All right, it's the first place I go when I want credible news on tech, UAPs, and anything cool that if you're into science fiction, you should be on this site.
And if you're into science fact, if you're into the future, you're into the future of science fact. And the cool thing about The Debrief is we've got, you know, we've got a formula. You know, it's about, okay, what are the facts? What's the analysis? And then where do we see this going? And you'll see, you know, whenever you click on an article, you'll see, you know, you'll see that formula. And it's a really great formula because it allows you to gather the data. It allows you to kind of figure out what the data means. And then it allows you to extrapolate on the data. And we don't do the thinking for you, but we give you an opportunity to think for yourself. And I think that's the most important thing. And you know, that's what I love about The Debrief.
That's what I also love about The debrief. And by the way, just so you guys know, there was an article written titled "The Foo Fighters: Today's Pilots Encounters with UAPs Are Nothing New." It was written by Graham Rendell. He's going to be on the show Saturday. We're doing a live stream with him, so we're going to talk about this article because I think it's fascinating. It was just retweeted by Christopher Mellon today, so we're not going to get into it now. But again, ring that bell. That way, you guys don't miss this stuff, because I'm telling you, this channel is going to be real fun in the next year and beyond. This is going to be awesome. So with all of that said, real quick, want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMountainChronicles.com. He's in the chat. Hit him up. Purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. He was one of the first online stores on the internet. Okay? Like, for real. Think about that. Okay? It's for real. And then the second thing is, of course, our boys Das Tapes. They provide all the music you hear in the show. Their SoundCloud link is also in the description below. So until next time, you guys, thank you so much for coming aboard and getting weird with Michael and I. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the Unidentified Celebrity Review family. We truly appreciate all of your support. Every time you guys hear these chats, these rooms are getting bigger with every single live stream. And I love it. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Till next time, I love all of you out there. Be cool, be safe. Peace.
Unidentified.